The music business is about perception, and we wanted to be perceived to be the biggest and the best. And sometimes you need more than the music, though that's the core. You need to be able to present something that visually is stimulating, and that's what we tried to do.
Emerson, Lake and Palmer were, unlike a lot of bands actually, were quite conscious of the need to reach out and communicate to audiences visually as well as musically. It was like a whole experience, and if people complained about it, I suppose it was they shouldn't have done really, because all ELP were trying to do with their so-called excess really was to entertain the audiences. And nowadays you'd have, say, an artist like Madonna or a Prince, they have huge elaborate stage shows and sets, so it's quite common and acceptable. But what ELP were doing really was creating the whole theatre rock experience, where you used lighting and effects and explosions, and if somebody suggested having a revolving drum kit, well, why not? Let's go for it. Let's do it. And it was all part of the fun. The climax of a show would be this visual treat. So if people thought that they were spending too much money on it, maybe it was the accountants thought that as well. I think the audiences just enjoyed it. But of course, a lot of critics thought it was all too overblown and got too far out and too excessive. And there was a lot of sort of politics in rock music at that time, and probably still is, of course, but people do get jealous if they see a band apparently lashing out money on 3 truckloads of equipment, becoming too grand, too big for their boots. So there's that kind of backlash that you get from people who are maybe not so enthusiastic about the music, or just see ELP as yet another group. They might regard them as too clever for their own good. But I thought it was all good fun, and I thought it was really important that when you go to see a show that you do have this whole experience. You don't just want to see a guy standing there holding an acoustic guitar, staring at his boots and singing a few lyrics. You need to put on a show, and that's what ELP did.
The band were incredibly professional. And it was a lot to get through. The sets were often 2.5 hours, very intricate. And Keith used to love, more than anything, of pushing the other two faster and faster. So prior to going on stage, everything was very methodical. The boys came off stage, and you can imagine it was, the adrenaline was flying high, and no one wanted to come down, so I'd arrange party time afterwards. And depending if we had to travel the next day, and we used to try to arrange it that we weren't moving on until at least lunchtime or early afternoon, so that we could enjoy ourselves that night.
There's a lot of untruths. I've heard a lot of, lobsters in the bath and all this kind of stupid. No, it wasn't like that. Every day was unbelievable. That's what it was like. There wasn't a single day which wasn't extraordinary. You'd be going from one day to the next, and it would just be unbelievable. That lasted for probably 6 years. We took very little time off. Of course, especially towards the mid-70s, it was what you would expect. Private jets. It was, as you said, everybody had their own car, and it was luxurious in that sense. But it was never, I have to say this, there were never televisions thrown out of windows. It was never at all abusive or in bad taste in that sense. It was never rock and roll in that way. We're pretty civilized human beings, and And I think, you know, we could have certainly been a lot more if we were really getting into that rock and roll madness. We could have certainly been 100 times worse than we were. There were a few. Look, there will always be stories. You know, you'll hear one where the roadies glued an entire room of furniture to the roof. These things happen, but that wasn't the norm. I have to say, wasn't normal.
I was a silly boy at one point, and that's, you're suddenly out there on the road, and things happen. I went through a short period in my life where I was doing a lot of the marching powder, but only for a year, and also, never before doing a concert. No, I decided to stop indulging in any hard drugs like that. Oh gosh, it was, when was it? I think it was about 1978, 77. And I was very friendly with Alvin Lee, the guitar player. And he was staying with me in the Bahamas. Then I was renting a place. And we thought we'd have one final bash, and then we'd knock it on the head. And it was January the 13th we decided, but then Alvin said, oh no, 13 is unlucky. Let's wait till the 14th. So that was it, we stayed up until about 6 o'clock in the morning in the Bahamas, and we're doing this stuff, and we both decided to swim back to England from Nassau in the Bahamas, and we waded into the sea. It's amazing we're still alive, really, and we both looked at each other. We're like way out in the ocean, swimming with our clothes on. We just went, nah, this is stupid, let's go back in. And that was it. I had one little relapse after that, and which really, I said, no way, this is completely stupid.
At the height of their fame, yeah, they were extremely excessive. I mean, if anything new came out, any kind of new equipment, lights, anything, they ran and got it. They had to get everything. Anything that came out, they wanted to be the first band to do it, or to have it, or to use it in any form they could. They were always over the top.
I decided, I was sponsored by Ludwig Drums at the time. I asked them to make me a stainless steel kit. I finally got one from them now. Now the company's 100 years old, they've made me a beautiful stainless steel kit. They didn't want to do it. So I said, okay, well, I'm leaving then. And it was my first endorsing program. So I thought I'd got to leave Ludwig, and it was a wrong decision, but I was a bit boisterous at the time. I said, stainless steel is the way to go for drums. That's the sound I like.
He had contacted British Steel, I believe, and asked them to make a drum kit for him.
Somebody at British Steel said, yes, we could make you cylinders, Mr. Palmer, at the depth and length you want. Yes, and we could definitely work out something with you. Yes, we know Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Yes, no problem whatsoever. Now, just tell me, there would be a small charge on this, but it'd be next to nothing, probably some transport, we're not too sure. Would you like the shells 1/4 of an inch thick or 1/2 an inch thick? I turned around and said, I'll take them 1/2 an inch thick. Of course, not thinking that the bass drum at 28 inches diameter took 2 people to lift it with a body belt. I mean, that's when I was excessive.
Terrific jazz drumming from Carl Palmer there. 8 different engineering companies were involved in the manufacture of this kit, which is the very first electronic stainless steel drum kit in existence. And as you see, as we get closer, it's beautifully decorated as well, because Carl had the idea of commissioning from a jeweller, Paul Raven, these very nice engravings. Raven did it for 6 months with a dentist's drill. There's a peacock, there's a beautiful squirrel, another nibbling away there on another of the drums. There's a fox. Really nice they are. And there's even somewhere, I think, a hedgehog. Yes, there it is. Now, Carl got the idea of these pastoral scenes from the engravings on antique hunting rifles. The oriental gongs were made for him by a manufacturer in Switzerland, and the dragons were copied from a Japanese vase. They were painted by an art teacher in Fulham called Charlie. Well, that's the background.
Matter of fact, one night, I believe it was in Wisconsin or Memphis, I forget where it was, but the stage actually collapsed because the drum set was too heavy. It took 2 people to lift up the bass drum. And he only used that set for the brain salve surgery tour, the Works tour, and then he retired it. And it was in storage in his garage for years. And I think it went up for auction. And one of Ringo Starr's people bought the drum set, and I believe that Ringo still has it to this day.
Brian Magoo was a personal roadie. We each had one guy who basically looked after our immediate needs. You know, if you want a drink, or you need a towel, or you need this, or something like that. So everyone, and the guy who looked after me was called Brian Magoo. I got an electric shock in the head from a microphone one day. After that, we decided to have a rubber, everything should be on rubber, because it could kill you, you know. We put the rubber mat down, and it looked horrible on the stage.
So he needed to have something to stop the shocks. And so he thought, well, let's get a nice Persian carpet.
So I said, can we cover it with some carpet? So Brian said, sure. I said, just go out and get a nice carpet, piece of carpet to cover it, thinking he would just get like black carpet or something. Anyway, it turns out he comes back, he's got over his shoulder, he's got this huge carpet. And he said, look at this. And he rolled it out. And it was this spectacular Persian carpet. Well, the tour was moving too fast. You know, I would have told him to take it back, but it was, it's not enough time. So, and it looked nice,
And Greg still uses it to this day. He uses this carpet, the same carpet. And when he's not using it, it's on his floor in his living room in his house. And he walks on it every day.